Hello everyone, this is Minecraft Builder 92 and welcome back to another video. Now I know what you might be thinking, I haven't heard that in such a long time. And for me, I haven't said that in probably 6 to 7 years, which is crazy to think about. Now you might be wondering, why am I making a new video on the channel? I haven't really uploaded anything for such a long time. Now the reason for that is the other day I was looking through some comments on my channel and I kept seeing comments talking about how some of my old videos just bring up so much nostalgia for people because they used to make them when they were kids. You know, now some of them have even graduated from college now when they were watching, like when they were 12 and 13 at the time when my videos were first coming out. So it's kind of crazy to think about how much time has passed. And so I really wanted to kind of make a video kind of looking at some old worlds together and then just kind of go down that nostalgia trip together. So before we begin, guys, I do want to mention real quick that I am still making content. I know I'm not really uploading content to this channel anymore, but I am also still doing a lot of live streaming over on Twitch. So definitely check the description for that information, because if you want to go and follow me, you can come interact with me. I'm still making content. I'm still here, just not really doing anything too much with this channel. So the Twitch is the main way to follow me and interact with me. So I just want to get that out there in case you did want to support and follow as well. But now let's get into looking at some of these old worlds. Okay, so here we are on the very first world. Now the first thing that you might see is this house right here. Now this house is kind of special to me and to so many other people. And the reason for that is this was, I believe, the very first video I ever made on Minecraft, and my very first ever house tutorial was how to make this house right here. Now, I'm going to be honest, I'm not a big fan of how this house looks, especially nowadays by the modern standards. But even at the time, I kind of remember looking at this and going like, I don't know. But it kind of just blew up and became its own thing. And I kept seeing videos and comments on this house. It was kind of crazy to see at the time that so many people were building this. And it really kind of showed the power that Minecraft does have. And then down this entire road, we're not going to look at every individual house because we just don't have time. We have a lot of other worlds to get to as well. But you can see a lot of my early builds. You can see that everything was based off of using snow. And just everything was kind of based off being white. Everything was very much a modern take at that time. And that's really what people wanted to see. But then as we progress through Minecraft, you can kind of see the change of what I like to build kind of change with it. Because Minecraft changed in itself as well. We had more building options than just square, which allowed us to do more stuff like this with more traditional looking houses. Which I will say, these are probably my more favorite types of builds to do than modern anyways. But then we also have like more ranch homes, we have townhomes, which we'll also see in a later world. We have the A-frame house, which is still one of my favorite builds, I think. And then kind of just flying down here, more modern stuff on the left, more traditional stuff on the right. Now this mansion here, now the reason why this one's kind of special is because this is the very first mansion I ever made in Minecraft. So again, this was before creative mode actually came out. And maybe if creative mode was out, it was like right as soon as it did. But you can kind of see that just how plain it looks, because again, this was kind of, we had to use the resources that we had available to us at the time, which wasn't much. Now, this mansion over here is definitely interesting and special to me, because this was the very first mansion. Now, it's remade on this world, but this was the very first mansion I ever made on PC, because I've always came from Xbox and Xbox 360s where I made my start in Minecraft. But then once I found out about PC and playing Minecraft on there, I went to try to build and do some stuff. And this was the very first house I ever built on PC because I wanted to make a mansion, but I just wanted to experiment, was kind of the main idea. I like the front more than the back. I don't think the back really looks that good. Like mainly the left side doesn't look that good, but yeah. Pretty much down this road, I guess we can maybe fly down here. We have just more mansion. This is like more mansion stuff. Definitely more of a modern mansion here, modern mansion over here as well. Another modern mansion. You can see just the huge modern take on everything. We have a mansion here. Now we also have another mansion. Now I can't remember who actually had this in one of their like intros. I came up for his Big B stats. There was someone who actually used to use this mansion in their intro to their videos. It wasn't me either. It was kind of interesting because I recognized it. I was like, oh, interesting. So that was definitely another popular mansion that was made. But we can't speak about popular mansions without going down the street over here and seeing my now most successful video of all time. Now, this video has 6 million views, and it's looking at this entire mansion here, which to this day is still one of my favorite mansions I've ever made. I love how this thing looks. I think the aesthetics hold up to this day. And I think everything flows really well together. And this kind of shows how far we've come from looking at our first mansion that's right over there to this one. How far Minecraft has come and how far we've come as well in our building techniques. That really just shows the true scale of our progression, I think. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this world. Now let's head over to another one. I know we kind of flew through some of those pretty quick, but we have a lot of worlds to get to, and I don't want to make the video too long for you guys. So yeah, let's head over to another world now. All right, so here we are in our second world. Now, do you guys recognize this city? Now, this is not Southlake. Southlake was my more modern city. This one is called Newfield City. This was my, I think, second actual city. The first one I ever made was actually still in survival. But this one is my true first big city that everything just kind of actually looks like a true city and has like a modern feel to it. So this definitely was when creative mode was available, and we did start this on a flat world as well, so we can't really dig down too far. But Newfield was the very first city that I truly went to full scale on. Now again, it's kind of crazy because everything was built by hand, so none of this was using any PC mods or anything like that, because all of this was made on Xbox One and Xbox 360, I believe. I can't remember where that transition point was, but we have a mall over here. You know, it's kind of just crazy to see how far the city has really come, and it's all crazy to think about all this was done by hand. That's why you're not going to see too many interiors on any of these builds, because interiors take so much longer, and I've always been kind of more of an exterior person. But there's definitely still some interesting builds and some really good builds on this entire city in itself. Like, I still think this one to this day is pretty cool. Using water, I believe, is what I'm using. Am I using water on this one? Yeah, using water and red wool, I think, and also gray. It kind of just gives it a really cool aesthetic to the entire build itself. We tried going for more like the winding skyscraper, didn't fully complete it. But pretty much the reason why we stopped making this world was because when we were done, the world have kind of finished. Like, I couldn't expand any farther. So it's kind of limited to how much space we had because the worlds were so much smaller then at the time. And then if we fly over to the other side of the river, what we can see is we have a casino with MCB, Minecraft Builder. It's so crazy to see that nowadays. Over here, we just have more of a suburban area. Now, here's not where I was like the most, you know, clinical with my designs, because I kind of just copied the same build over and over and over again. Looking back on it, definitely would not do this again, but you can just see all the different houses that we do have. We even have some apartments as well, which I do like the look of the apartments. I think they look pretty good, but again, they all look the exact same, which is more fine for apartments, not so much for this many townhomes in a row. So I think it kind of looks a little weird. But it's kind of weird too, because like if you look at the map, it's kind of crazy to see. One, the map, I didn't even realize it was going to update with new colors and everything. But look what the map used to look like. I mean, it's kind of crazy to see how much space was made and filled with this entire city. Now, one of my favorite things about this city was it was covered by one of my favorite Minecraft channels. Actually, they're not even just Minecraft. One of my favorite channels in history, Achievement Hunter. They did a tour of this entire city. They didn't go into too much in depth about it, but they definitely kind of looked at it. They were kind of amazed by it. It's crazy to see, again, how everything progressed. And now we're going to move on to probably my longest lasting series on the channel, Southlake. Okay, so here we are on Southlake City. This is my longest lasting series I've ever made on the channel, if I do remember correctly. Now, this city is still special to me because once again, everything was made by hand. But this world did have an interesting start because I did find out at that time that it was possible to transfer worlds from PC over to Xbox. So what I did was I wanted to make the city by hand, but I wanted to be able to put like a metro station underneath the ground and do more stuff underground as well. And so what I did was I transferred a world from PC that was raised up by maybe 20, 30, 40 blocks, whatever it is. So that way I could do that. But that's why you see this massive drop off at the end of the world, because that's how big the worlds were at the time. So it's kind of like a mark and step in time to see how far things really have come. But then what we can do is kind of just fly around. I had some big aspirations for this world. Not all of them got to be realized because some of them would have just taken way too much time. But this city really also shows progression. If you just look at where we were earlier with Newfield versus what we're seeing now, it's kind of crazy to look at to see how much more realistic everything looks. Everything looks more like it has a purpose behind it and not so much just there to kind of just fill space. You know what I mean? Like everything here has been more methodically placed and designed to fit the area that it's going to be using. And so that's why I'm actually a big fan of this world. All right, so I just slept to make sure it's daytime so you guys can see everything a little bit easier. Now, one thing that I'm not really sure if anyone ever noticed. Now, if you look at Newfield City, the park that we had where we had that giant statue of Steve, this park actually resembles the exact same layout because I wanted to take some stuff from Newfield to kind of like thank you to Newfield for like how far we've come. So if you look, that Newfield like city park, what it actually had was 3 rings. Now this actually has those 3 rings just flat, and that way it's actually more of an actual park. So I thought it was kind of interesting. No one ever really caught that, so I think it's kind of a cool little thing that I didn't really go into too much detail about, but it's definitely interesting to see. But definitely here you can see a lot more design into a lot of these builds. Once again, only everything is on exterior base because everything was built by hand. This over here is still one of my favorite bridges. I love how this modern bridge looks. I think it looks really cool. And to this day, one of my favorite ever builds was this baseball stadium because I love how realistic this looks. I love the placement of it, how it looks at downtown city. I just love how this looks. It looks incredibly realistic even to this day. I'm still a big fan. Like how you can like see the city in the background. And there's even dugouts and everything like that. We can't really go into those because we have so much we have to show you guys. But I'm still love how this kind of stadium turned out because it still looks so realistic. I love how it looks right next to the river. I think it's just one of those monumental pieces in time for me that I'm like looking back on. I'm like, wow, that's really impressive. I'm really happy with how that turned out. And then once you cross the highway over here is when the world's actually at one point allowed us to get bigger. So I could actually expand out a little bit. And what I wanted to do was make more elevation change into the city. So you're going to see things kind of drop here a little bit because what I wanted to do is kind of just what I said of making that transition point of I didn't want everything to be flat. I wanted everything to feel like it had some elevation. And so what you're getting ready to see is a lot more of my true modern designs for everything because this is like a lot more of the newer part of the city. And when the worlds did expand, this area right here was the very first area that I worked on. So I love this apartment building here. I think it looks really good. Again, it's not finished. A lot of this stuff over here isn't finished, but I think it looks really good. We have the metro station system. So we have that here. The road system is a lot more planned out. And even just looking at the start of South Lake versus over here, you can see it once again, everything is kind of being thought up a little bit more as well. So everything is kind of being learned from one area and then made better into another because again we have more elevation changes, we have everything. So what we're looking at right here is the Madrinas building, which is the tallest building in all of South Lake. So this building has a really cool backstory and something I'm still really proud of to this day. Now Madrinas is a coffee brand and they're really big into supporting content creators and into gaming, and they're actually based here in St. Louis, which is where I'm based as well. Now, we actually communicated and worked together, and this was their very first, and I was their very first content creator partnership. So what we did at the time was we wanted to incorporate Madrinas into the world, and they wanted to know how I could do that. So I said, I could put you on the tallest building. That way, your name is cemented with the tallest and highest point on the map. And then it's kind of like free sponsorship as well. I mean, I'm kind of talking, why is my guy just flying straight? So yeah, it's kind of just one of those weird things to where it's really cool to see how far that's kind of progressed again, because Madrinas now supports massive creators like Shroud and so many others. Linus Tech Tips, I think they do stuff with them as well. So definitely interesting to see. But then all these builds over here are like the most up-to-date builds in the entire world that we have here. So here you can see a lot more of the design of buildings touching, like what you get in actual cities, but with different designs. So here you can kind of see more office building to more modern, then to more kind of like sandstone office building as well. Here it kind of looks more like apartments. You know, everything, again, flowed a lot better into everything. And then one of the areas that I did work on that I kind of mentioned at the very beginning is a metro station. So if we come down, we'll get rid of the flying. Here we have the turntables kind of thing. But then we have the train station that goes left to right. But then if we go farther down, you can see that we have another one. So this one would then go straight, not left to right. So think it is like cardinal directions, one going one way, one's going the other. was kind of the idea there for the different train stations. You can see that everything is floating above the ground. Once again, we wanted everything to kind of feel like there was more elevation change. But yeah, that's pretty much it for South Lake. Let's go look at another world. So this is the last world that we are going to be looking at. So this is a world that is the most recent of all my tutorials when it comes to my builds and stuff. So a lot of these are more recent, but I still want to kind of go over them because I kind of wanted to like start at the very beginning and then show where we are as well. So we kind of went in chronological order. Here we have some more builds on townhomes, really big when you're making cities and stuff like that. We have kind of a more traditional house as well, just made with brick. So this house here actually has a massive meaning to me as well. So kind of like some of the other ones that we looked at earlier, this one is really important to me as well. And the reason for that is if you look at this, it looks kind of weird having vines all over the place. Now the reason for this is this was a live stream build onto Machinima's YouTube channel and Facebook pages and whatever social media accounts I had at the time as well. But this was live streamed for Christmas. This was a Christmas live stream build that I made for them. And they told me after that this was the most watched live stream they've ever had. So it was really interesting and really cool to hear that because it was one of those things to where it was all Christmas theme and we were making a Christmas house. And yeah, they told me that it was their most watched live stream ever, which was really, it's mind boggling to think about. We have a bank over there, a White Castle. We have more traditional houses once again, pretty much our new modern style of building. Once again, more traditional. Love how this looks. You can kind of see that we're incorporating a lot more materials and texture into our builds at this point. Same thing over here, more basic, but like I think that was kind of on purpose. But then over here, what you're going to see is all of our most modern mansions. So here, honestly, I'm not a fan of how the front of this one looks. I think the back looks better. It looks massive in the back because it goes down into the ground a little bit. I'm not gonna lie, this is still not one of my favorite mansions. It's definitely at the lower end of the tiers out of all the mansions I've ever made. But across the street, we have more of a traditional mansion. So again, kind of taking what we saw earlier over there and kind of putting it more into a bigger house. And then we have a limestone house over here, which this one isn't bad. I think the proportions just look off. The roof looks too tall compared to the rest of the house. I think this one had a lot of potential. I don't think it's bad by any means, but it's just not my favorite as well. This one over here is still one of my favorites. I love the different textures and artwork kind of incorporated into the design itself. The back could use a little bit of work. But then we have my most recent builds. I don't think this was my most recent build, but pretty much one of my newer builds, like maybe from like 3 videos ago, which is like 2 years ago at this point. It's kind of weird to think about. But one of my most recent builds in Minecraft was this. And then we have this very much traditional mansion, like more old school type of mansion. Really love how this one turned out because I haven't really done too many builds that look like this. And I think this one turned out really well and kind of fits the theme of the type of build that it is. Because one of the things that you kind of saw with some of those earlier builds was maybe the front looked good, but then the back didn't look as good. Or not everything like seemed to match the aesthetic of everything else. But if you look at some of these builds that are more recent, everything kind of matches. Like there's not anything that kind of looks out of place. And it's like, well, how come you have like a modern house, but then like this part looks like a traditional part? Like everything kind of looks like it fits in these newer builds, which is what you're supposed to do. But I haven't really touched Minecraft in a building aspect in such a long time. I have other games I can, scratch that itch that I still have for creativity for. So yeah, once again, I know I mentioned this at the beginning, but if you do want to still interact with me in a more consistent basis, I am streaming over a lot on Twitch. My Twitch link will be down in the description. I would love if you guys went to go follow me, just because one, I'm also having competition with some family that we're all kind of streaming and trying to see who can get the most followers. So it's kind of cool and a lot of fun there. But it's also just a great way to interact with me. You're going to see me playing a lot of different games as well. It's not going to be just Minecraft. So yeah, thank you for growing up with me, guys. Thank you very much for just everyone who has watched and has watched this video especially. I thank you for being subscribed. I know I'm not really uploading that much anymore. I mean, it's so rare that I do. But yeah, I just want to say thank you guys, and thank you all for the memories that we've all made together. And hopefully we can just make more in the future, even if it requires it being in different places. So bye-bye, guys.